everybody. My name is Mike Rogers. I am your moderator for today, your mobile moderator, because in self-advocacy, we're flexible. So I want to welcome you to our lunch and learn today. I am with Arise of Western New York, who, along with a lot of other of our agencies and supporters, is putting on this lunch and learn today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how we advocate and why it's important, and the meat and potatoes of meeting with our legislators and really trying to get our voices heard, with our lawmakers so that change can be made, and what really goes into that, as well as what is important to talk about since the budget is coming up. That is key, because how the money goes is where services and supports go. So that's who I am. I am one of the co-chairs of Arise Western New York. And I also am part of the self-advocacy.
Right. Well, I'm very, I have what to do. You just stay there and relax.
Let's go. Todd, who are you?
My name is Todd Vaarwerk. I'm Chief Policy Officer for Western New York Independent Living. We're the independent living center that serves the western area of the state. And I've been doing advocacy on state issues, including the budget, for about 30 years. Max?
Go ahead, Max.
Okay, yeah. Hi, I'm Max Donatelli, and I am a parent of a young man with Down syndrome. He's 36 years old, lives semi-independently in the community. I'm an advocate for people with developmental disabilities, and a friend of mine and I, BJ Stasio, have started a thing called the Art of Advocacy, which we're really trying to teach advocates how to become better advocates and work with legislators and governmental folks and be able to people to be able to, with disabilities, to be able to live in a life in the community with quality of life. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I know I don't have a small philosophy, but neither did you when you graduated. Oh, well, yeah, that's not that much really. I was, yeah.
Mike, back to you, man. While he tries to figure out how to unmute himself. Maggie, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Maggie Buckley. I am a parent of a woman with Down syndrome who is in self-direction and lives with us and is an artist. And I am on the board of L'Arche Buffalo. We have had a presence in the community for a while, but now we're officially a L'Arche project, and we are a group of people who support full inclusion and people with and without disabilities sharing life together.
And you assist Arise in coordinating these lunch and learns, right?
Yes, I do, actually.
Absolutely. Marie, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Marie Malnowski. I'm the other co-chair of Arise. Normally, I'm not on here, but I'm here today because I don't have class.
I'm glad you could join.
I'm interested in just seeing what you guys do.
Okay. All right. I was able to get it to unmute. It didn't want to do that for a moment, but so we want to start off by talking about families, Max. And one of the things a lot of families don't understand is how important it is to advocate with your legislator, and why it's important for them to do that with and for their family member. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure.
And why that's important?
Sure, Mike. And, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about this issue, because it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts, and we've been doing this for many, many years. Being able to develop relationships with our elected officials, with our assembly person, as well as our senator, state senator, and also we do also have contact with our people in Congress as well. And you know, and you know, the reason, Mike, and this is something that is, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, for various reasons, you know, don't really understand how important it is. The funding comes in, most of the funding that comes in for people with with intellectual and developmental disabilities is coming from the federal government as well as the state government. A certain amount of it also does even come from the county government and from local towns and the city. But primarily it's coming from the state and from the federal government. It's generally Medicaid money. It might be Social Security, SSD. There's various. It's also Medicare in some situations as well. But the only way that our legislators, the people that are our representatives in Albany and in Washington, the only way that they know what the issues are is they have to find that out from us. And it's developing relationships with the legislators is something that Joyce, my wife, and Craig, our son, had been doing for many years, and they know who we are. Craig lives, as I mentioned, in self-direction up in Amherst, and his legislators are Assemblywoman Karen McMahon and State Senator Sean Ryan. And so, you know, Craig has developed a good relationship with the two of them. They know who he is. They know who we are. Joyce and I live in Hamburg, which is south of the city. And our legislators are John Rivera, who's an assembly member, and Senator Patrick Gallivan. And they also know us, as well as in all situations, all four of them, the staff know us. And many times people feel put off if they are just meeting with a staff member. And a staff member is, just as knowledgeable in many situations, in some situations, even more knowledgeable about certain kind of legislations than the actual assembly member or senator is. So developing a relationship with the with your staff of your elected officials is really important, as well as getting to know you as well. We also have contact with the governor's local director here, which is Bonnie Lockwood Kane. She's the governor's representative here for the western part of the state. And so we also get to meet with, and she knows who we are as well. So, so it is important that they get to know who you are. And the way they get to know who you are is you have to contact them. And their information is on the respective assembly. There's a website for the New York State Assembly and for the New York State Senate, as well as the New York State Governor's Office, as well as Congress. And, so starting with probably the easiest thing to do is to start with your own legislators, which are your state's senator and with your state assembly member. And, making contact with them, you can start with a phone call. You can ask, to have a meeting with them, either in person or virtually. And, that is something that you can do. And they are generally very open and very friendly people, by and large. We have found them to be very friendly, and because they want to hear from us. They are our representatives. We elected them into office. And so we really want to be able to make sure that, that they know what our issues are, that they, that Craig talks about his self-direction. He talks about, how important the staff are to him, and if the staff weren't there, he wouldn't have the same kind of a quality of life that he has. And, so we've worked with Craig. He's able to tell his story. He's able to talk about, why him living semi-independently is important to him, and being able to get out in the community, being an inclusive part of the community, an included part of the community, and so on. So it really is important that your assembly people and your senator gets to know who you are, and know a little bit about them too. Find out what kind of committees they may be on, and a little bit about what their interests are. And even if you didn't vote for them, they are still your representatives. That's very important for you to know that. That's very important.
Well,
So
Max,
that's a little, go ahead, Mike.
Max, you covered a lot of what we wanted to talk about today. But one thing I wanted to know is a lot of families and a lot of people are nervous about talking to their representatives because their representatives hold a place of power, so they're nervous about talking to the people that they elected, because a lot of times they don't see it like that. They say, well, they control the money. They're important. I'm not, or I'm just some guy off the street or whatever. What would you say to them about being a family member and being comfortable talking to a legislator about, what's important?
Well, and that's a great question, Mike, and that I think is one of the things I think people are kind of hesitant to do that, and to make that first phone call, and to call their legislator, and because there is this perception that they're higher up on the echelon, so to speak. But they work for us. They work for us, and being able to talk with them, on an equal level, is something that does take a little practice. I mean, I will tell you, it does take some practice. But if you start with, getting to know the staff, making that first phone call, their information is generally very easy to get. And generally the staff, after they find out a little bit about who you are, what your advocacy issues are, why it's important, funding is for you, whether you're, a parent with a loved one that's living at home with you, or they're living in a certified group home, or wherever they may be, and getting supports and services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's important for them to know a little bit about, why that funding is important, and they do need to hear from us. I guess that's one of the things that, we certainly want people to, to be able to learn and to know. One of the things, as I had mentioned earlier, we started this thing called the Art of Advocacy, and we do have a website. It's artofadvocacy.com, all one word, artofadvocacy.com. And we do have on our website some ideas, a video of, for example, BJ Stasio, who's a very good advocate that works with us. And it has him on there testifying at a committee meeting, at a Senate committee meeting, and give you some idea of what, somebody that's a little bit more advanced, in some ways a lot more advanced, but being able to talk with legislators, being able to express what your issues are, being able to talk about, and have them get to know you as people. They are people, they are people just like us. And and again, they work for us, and they need to know what's important for us, in whatever communities kind of situation we're in, and being able to maintain the quality of life that's needed. Does that help, Mike?
Yeah, that was great, man. Thanks.
I want to throw something in here.
Okay, go on, throw
because
something in.
a lot of folks, a lot of folks are looking at this and saying, this looks like a lot of work, right? It's
Yeah.
not all that much work at all.
Nope.
You pick up the phone, you schedule an appointment, whether it's a phone appointment to talk to somebody or a Zoom appointment or going into the office, whether it's locally or in Albany.
Hmm.
And all you got to do is know what you want to say, right? Have a couple of notes for yourself just to make sure that you know the important things you want to say, right? And go in and just let the meeting happen naturally, especially meetings with staff. They're very easy because staff will take whatever it is you say to them, and later in the day, they're going to go and whisper it into the word of the legislator. And they're going to say, Mike was here today. And this is what Mike had to say, because they're going to take notes about what you say to make sure that they communicate it accurately.
Well,
Right.
thank you, Todd. I do appreciate that because
Mm.
that's actually right on target. And again, hearing it from
Mhm.
both of us, I think is important because I know, Todd, you've been doing this for a long time as well. And
Yep.
and you're right. It's not hard to do, but it's important to do.
Right.
Todd,
All
I,
right, go on,
oh, go
Maggie,
ahead.
go on. Go
Well,
on.
I just wanted to, from a parent perspective, I'm glad you said that, Todd, because it does feel daunting sometimes. Parents have a lot on their plate now. But I'd also like to comment that maybe, and L'Arche Buffalo will take on a role in advocacy. The national organization is, they're great advocates, and advocacy is important. But I think there are a lot of parents who truly are in distress now. And they have a lot on their plate. And because I've been involved with L'Arche and talking about housing issues, and seeing the desperate need that people have, I've also encountered people with lots of difficulty, spouses who are sick, spouses who have passed away, all kinds of issues. And I think, and maybe this is something we can do with L'Arche, I think we need to take on a role of getting the stories out there for people who can't do it. They just can't do it right now.
Well, and that's
Well,
an important point.
that's a question we had, Maggie, along with Todd and Max. What suggestion would you have for people that are in more involved situation where they're supporting someone that does have a more severe, if you want to call it for lack of a better word at the moment, disability, that it isn't just, you know, we want to get money for something, but people who are struggling. What would the panel suggest? How do you articulate that? How do you bring out the fact that you are struggling with something, but you also want that respect at the same time and the support that's needed through the government or whatever services that you get?
That- That's a big question right now. And there's two things that I would say. One is it's always good to do your research, right? To know which battles you're fighting and who you're fighting them with. Because one of the things that can grind a meeting to a halt is going to a state legislator and talking about federal funding, or going to a federal legislator and talking about state funding, right? And sometimes it's really confusing, right? But if you know the problem that you're talking about is going to the right person to talk about it, then the meetings go a lot faster. So it's just a matter of, you know, parents have a lot to worry about right now. Consumers have a lot to worry about right now, right? So when we're talking about federal money, when we're talking about federal waiver money and Medicaid money and HUD grants for housing and SNAP, right?
Mhm.
Those are federal issues, and you're going to want to talk about them with your congressman and your federal senators, right? Chuck Schumer and uh, Gillibrand,
Senator Gillibrand, Kirsten
Senator
Kirsten
Kirsten Gillibrand,
Kirsten Gillibrand.
right? Now, if you're talking about things like state money because you're on a waiver and you're talking about DSP wages, right? While the federal government has some involvement with that based on the formula, those are more state issues. So you would bring those to your state assemblyman and your state senator, right? If you've got a problem with not being able to, having a problem with taking your garbage tote in, right? Something simple for a parent family, right? That's a city issue or a town issue, right? Maybe a county issue if you live in a rural enough place, but probably not, right? Know where the battles go. Half of that stuff will disappear. The other thing to point out is legislators of all stripes, the big thing they need in order to advocate for what they want are human stories that tell the tale. And the great thing about this is we're humans, right? All we have to do is say the thing that we know best, our story. And if you can't do it alone because you think you think it's too difficult, right? Then you join up with a group that does it because they'll do their research and be better prepared.
Well,
Don't be
that's a good follow-up question. Sorry to interrupt you, Todd, but I am moderating.
Nope, jump right in.
So I'm going to do that. That's a good follow-up question to this, Todd. Is you said join up with a group. I know Western New York Independent Living has been involved with helping people advocate. I know, Max, you're involved with the Donny Family Committee. Maggie, you're involved with L'Arche. Can you talk about what it means, what it feels like to be part of a group when you feel supported? For the family members and people with disabilities out there that just go, I just don't know. Life is difficult. I want them to help, but I don't know if I want to go into the legislature alone and talk. And I'm not a big talker. I have family members that say that and everything. How does it feel? How backed up do you feel when you're a part of a group that goes to visit or something like that?
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that's something too that we can, that we can share, afterwards is some, some website, that people could, and some phone numbers of people that you can, join groups, whether it's SANES, which is Self-Advocates of New York State. They have local groups here for self-advocates, people with disabilities, as well as the Developmental Disability Alliance of Western New York's Family Committee. We have supports and resources and information to support families in exactly the kind of things, Mike, that you're talking about. And Maggie, you also have, those kinds of supports as well.
Right.
Oh,
We have,
well, and the independent living centers do. I
Yep.
do want to drive home kind of the purpose of Mike's question, though, because as a person with a disability myself, right, the first time I did it, right, I went as part of a group. I was nervous, right? You walk into that big building in the Empire State Plaza, right? And Empire State Plaza is kind of an interesting thing because it looks like you're walking through a mall for a little while, right? And then you go through a set of doors, and all of a sudden, here's, state police searching you and putting you through metal detectors. And then you walk around the corner, all of a sudden you see this big sign that says Legislative Office Building, right? You walk through the door and it's all going marble, right? With signs everywhere. It can be really intimidating. But the thing is, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're going with a group, you are the constituent, and that means you have power and value. And it took me a couple of trips to get used to that. The idea that I have power and value. And the great thing about that is if you have power and value and your message doesn't exactly come out right, that's okay. You tried. If it's a message that resonates with them, they're going to pick up the phone and call you back. Happens to me sometimes when I have a meeting with somebody at 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm not even out of the Capitol yet, and I get a follow-up call from somebody, right? It's the coolest thing in the world to come and tell your story and be with people who believe and support you, whether that's going to Albany, whether that's going to your city hall or your town board meeting, or whether it's going to Washington. Max and I think Maggie and I have all been to Washington, D.C. at various times in our career. It's the greatest honor to walk through the Capitol Rotunda, right? Walking on the way to see a congressman at their office. And when they talk about the Hill, right? They're not kidding. It actually is. Bring comfortable shoes because it's a 12-degree slope. You're climbing a hill.
You know, Maggie, you talked the other day about the fact that what are some manageable steps to advocate when you have a more difficult situation to advocate for? And what I love about our conversation here, I'm the moderator, but I'm going to comment anyway. I think that what we talk about here is working as a group when you need to, having the confidence to come together, and maybe somebody in your group is worried about the future, is worried about, am I going to say the right thing, or am I going to say enough? But when you're part of a group, you become empowered, and I think, and I think that is something we want to convey today, is you're not alone in the world and its struggles. You might sometimes feel like that, but your legislators are a key part of changing things, in a system that might not be addressing everything it needs to address, or in a world that might not be using funding the way it needs to be used to support people. So I just wanted to say that.
I have a
Good.
question about the storytelling, because I do think that's vitally important and very compelling. Do you always include kind of a call to action at the end of your story where you are very specifically requesting something?
I think that's a really good point too. And I think that's one of the things I think that as you become more, comfortable, with meeting with legislators is really having an ask at the end, that you're asking that, senator or that assembly member, or Congress member that, that you want something to happen, whether it's, you really would like to see the staff that are working with your son or daughter, or or with you, to be able to get a higher pay, because you really feel they're underappreciated because they're not getting the kind of pay that that they should be getting, if that's an issue, and get some kind of an indication of whether or not that's something that they're going to be able to help with, and then follow up afterwards, to see that there is going to be follow up, and to see whether or not they were able to, to be able to get some more funding, to the agency, or to be able to get more funding that's going to be able to support you in your situation, whether it be, housing issues, whether it be whatever those issues may be, that there is follow up, and that you really kind of hold their feet to the fire to see that that they are listening to you, and they actually have done something when they do go to Albany or they do go to Washington, as Todd had mentioned before.
And you guys have your first professional term of art as advocates. You now know about the ask. The thing at the end of your speech that asks the legislator to do something for you, no matter what that is. And the most common ask is, please support this. Please oppose this.
Yep.
Right? I'm a big guy. I always want them to support things, but every once in a while, I gotta ask them to oppose stuff. And you're right, Maggie. It's about the storytelling, and we always want to try and relate the story to the ask, right? But it's the story that's going to create the power. Because if you're going in a group, right? Remember, I said as individuals, the thing to remember is just have notes for yourself. If you're going as a group, really good groups are gonna kind of work out who's gonna talk when. Like, believe it or not, we do before this meeting, right? And they might. I am always very the I'm kind of anal retentive when it comes to this particular thing. Whenever I go to a meeting, when I leave, there's always something written left behind to remind them, right? So really good groups are going to leave something behind to remind them, at the very least, of the asks,
Good
right?
point.
Now,
Good point. It's a
you
good
as
point. The
advocates,
other issue I could say, and Todd, in relation to that too, it's also good too, if you can follow up afterwards with an email. You know, if you don't, if you forget to leave something or you don't have something, you can also then thank them, you know, for meeting with you. And you know, likewise, exactly what you're saying, Todd, because then they
mom
kind
and
of
dad
remember.
always said, thank them when they do something for you,
That's right.
Well,
right?
well,
And a meeting is doing something for you.
That's right.
well, you know, that being said, one thing we didn't talk about is we talked about how when you go see your legislator, you want to let them know what you want. But one thing you should always also do is find out what they're a little bit about and what they've been working on so that you can collaborate in some way or you can connect your issue with what they've been doing. And
And
I just
here's
wanted to say that.
and here's a dirty little trick.
Mhm.
Sign up for your legislators' newsletters.
Newsletter. Yeah.
Because the newsletter is going to be sent to you at some point. I get, most of the time I get something quarterly from my state people, right? But it's going to list like most of the bills they're sponsoring and a photo of them at an event that they think is important to promote to their constituents. Another term of art, constituent is what we are. We are the people that are represented by whoever that person is, right? But that newsletter, that's going to tell you everything. So if you know you're going to see a legislator in a couple of weeks, right? Get a load of their newsletter, and you can find them online, like at the websites for the various senators and assembly people. A version of the newsletter is like right there online. So it's not particularly hard to find. And that's going to tell you everything you need to know. You don't even have to work hard. It's right there for you.
Okay, thank you guys. Up next, I got some stuff for you, Todd. So,
Yep.
so Todd, one of the big issues that we have, and for some of us in our services today, is home care. Can you
Yep.
tell us about CDPAP, what that is, and then tell us about the current issue with home care and why it's so important to to talk about that, and then we're going to go into the little of the state budget.
All right. I'm going to go really fast because I want time for the state budget.
Okay.
But here's the thing with consumer directed personal assistance services, right? If you want help doing care tasks at home, what they refer to as instrumental activities of daily living, like taking a bath or using a toilet or eating or getting dressed, right? Medicaid has a service for that. That's called home health. Two ways you can get home health. You can get what they call the traditional form, where an agency sends a worker out to help you. Or you can get the consumer directed form, where you hire the person you want to help you and they go to an agency and become part of that agency, and the agency handles all the paperwork and you supervise the aid, right? That's really important because in the traditional model, you don't. The company that sends the aid to you supervises that person. You might get quality service from them, but a lot of times we hear stories that you don't. So a lot of people have shifted over to consumer directed because they want to hire people. Now, the big change that's happening right now is that the states decided that they only want one company for the aid to join, right? It's called the single fiscal intermediary. And they did a big process and they had an RFP, or request for proposals, and PPL LLC, Public Partnerships Limited LLC, right, won the bid. So as of April 1st, they're going to become the single fiscal intermediary. Now, there are some legal challenges to that, so we don't exactly know how it's going to turn out. But if you need aid service, you request it the same way you get any other Medicaid services. And if you already have CDPA, I really want to encourage you to get some help to sign up for PPL, okay? Because even if you're fighting for your right to choose and you want to stay with your current fiscal intermediary, that's going to be up to judges and courts. And I wouldn't rely on not having a backup option if the courts don't hold things your way. So I would always prepare to sign up to transition your services to PPL. Now, if you need help doing that, we can help you out. Our website is in the chat, right? Or you can pick up the phone and call us, 716-836-0822, extension, well, just go to 0 and ask for taking control.
And Todd, just real quick, since this is a virtual platform, there might be somebody that's outside of Western New York. Could they also contact their local independent living to get help as well?
They can contact their local independent living center, or they can look for in the notice, if they have CDPA now, right, their current FI is required to send them a notice, and in the notice is going to have the toll-free number for PPL.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And then PPL is going to help them get a facilitator.
So tell us, Todd, tell us a little bit of the process of the state budget, because we hear the governor giving their state of the state update. Some of that can be a little confusing. Can you give us a little overview of how this stuff works?
Pretty simple. Round about Halloween every year, the executive chamber, where the governor is, sends a notice out to all the state departments that says, time to develop the budget. So we need you to send us, your internal departmental request for your budget. And they do, and that takes a while, right? And all that stuff is assembled because we're talking about, $1 trillion budgets here in New York, right? And coming out of that at the same time is legislators and government officials talking about priorities for the next year in the budget. Now, we don't hear about that stuff until the governor gives her state of the state, and then right after that is the budget address, right? Where she announces her version of the budget. But her version of the budget isn't the final version of the budget, because after that, both houses, the Senate and the Assembly, then come up with their version of the budget. And the way they do that is they have hearings right after the governor does her budget address. They're happening right now, right? About various areas that they fund in the budget: healthcare, education, transportation, housing. And then they come up with their versions of the budget. And the big thing about the budget negotiation that we then hear about is that all three parties got to get together in a room and bring all these things together so that there's one version that the legislature can approve and that the governor can sign. right? And we're in that process right now.
Okay.
More?
Okay. Yeah, that was a very good explanation, because I know a lot of people are confused about that. But one follow-up question to you, Todd, is what impact does people visiting their legislator have on actual decision making
Okay.
for the budget?
So you're advocating for money for your aid or money for your DSP, right? Different
Yeah.
areas of the state budget, but the advocacy is the same. You go to your legislator and you tell them your story as to why that person or those people are important to you. And you say to the ask for your legislature is, we need you to support an appropriate amount of money in the budget. And maybe if you go with a group, they have a particular number in mind. Now, what happens is legislators will do various things with that. Some of them will do what we call dear colleague letters, right? Where they'll pass it around to other legislators, and legislators will sign letters like a petition that'll go to the head of their legislative chamber, whether that's the Speaker of the Assembly or the chair of the Senate, right? And that's recommendations to say, hey, we want you to put this priority into our house's budget, and we want you to negotiate for that when you get into the room with the Assembly and the Senate and the governor's people. That's how you can affect the power on the budget. You meeting with your legislator then convinces him to talk to his bosses, and then those issues become things in the budget.
Or her.
Or her, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, if I talk to them, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I've had people say that, so it's good.
Absolutely matters.
So it's good to know that it matters, right? So
I think that Mike, if I also
Sure.
want to make a comment
Go
to it
ahead.
as well, is that being part of a group too, whether it be, the Independent Living Center, whether it be, the Donny Family Committee, whether it be Sanies, that those groups also then in turn, the kind of issues and agenda issues that you may raise, they also can help carry that too. So I think it's important that you make sure that those agents, whatever group that you may be working with, that you know what their issues are, a part of their agenda, so that they can then get back to you and let you know, yeah, we did pretty good this year, or we didn't do too good, but maybe we got this, but maybe we need to get a little bit more. But it's you're not there just by yourself. And as Todd mentioned, we have done those trips to Albany. We've done the trips to legislative offices, here locally, as well as in Washington and in Albany. But I think it is important, though, that you're the group that you work with, or groups. Sometimes it is groups that that you see what they're going to carry, and how they can help you, and how you can help them as well with your story, as Todd mentioned.
Right.
Yeah, you talked about that, and it made me think of the idea of numbers, because the more people talk about something, the more people bring it up, the better it is, the better it looks, and the more impact it has than only one person bringing an issue up, per se. Not saying that one person going doesn't matter, but if you go in a group, or you're part of a group that says, hey, this is important to us, your legislator or anybody will listen more than if it's just one person, right?
Exactly.
A couple of things here, right? No matter how you speak to a legislator about an issue, right? The most powerful thing to do is to go and see them. For every person that comes to visit, there's kind of an internal calculation that they say 10 people might feel the same way you do, right? So if you go to a meeting with 6 people and you're all talking about the same thing, they're thinking that there could be as many as 60 people back home who care. If you write a letter, right, to a legislator that has your signature at the bottom, they think, okay, 5 people in addition to that person might care enough to write a letter, right? If you make a phone call, they might think that 6 or 7 people might make the same phone call. So there is a thing, because they know they can't meet with every possible constituent on every issue. So you going in there either alone or in a group, right, communicates more than just you, because they recognize that other people may think the same way as you do.
Yeah,
right?
very good, very good.
Mhm.
So Todd, we're gonna pivot a little bit, and we like examples, and although it doesn't look like she could be here at the moment, one of the most recent examples of an advocate taking a bull by the horns, or the deer by the antlers, however we want to say that, is a self advocate named Stephanie Speaker. She's been advocating tirelessly for
Yep.
transportation. Okay, can you, and you've been working with her on this particular crusade, let's say. Can you speak to Stephanie and
Yep.
how she's been a great example of a person taking
Yeah.
a passion and then making something out of it as far as the legislators are concerned.
It is the example for each of you out there. If you have something that really tugs at your heart, right? Because she was really profoundly affected when the NFTA changed the transportation parameters and paratransit wouldn't go directly to the West Seneca DDSO office anymore, right? So she started to work with people about how to do that, and determined that the problem was that the NFTA wasn't going far enough. The NFTA kept saying that we can only go 3/4 of a mile. Now that's kind of ridiculous, because the ADA is a minimum, our minimums, not maximums. But it then turned into a conversation with advocates about what we want to do, and where that turned to was something called paratransit expansion. And what she got was 2 local legislators, right, to write versions of a bill talking about expanding paratransit. And in her case, it was to 1.5 miles on each side of a bus route, or double what the federal minimum is, right? That bill got introduced for consideration by both houses and went off to the committees, which is what happens when you introduce a bill. Committees that kind of concentrate on that area look at that bill and make amendments and think about it. Now, she's been doing this for a long time. Everybody knows Stephanie's been doing this for a long time. Why is it taking so long? Because there was another bill talking about paratransit expansion from a different area of the state that wanted different numbers. So the legislators couldn't agree on which numbers to use until we, as the disabled community, decided which numbers we wanted, right? When we finally did that, and it boiled down to one bill, which is where it is now, right? We started talking about putting money in the budget to pay for paratransit expansion. And what the last thing that happened with that was that they weren't prepared to put, a $20 million thing into the budget. But what they were prepared to do was to give NFTA $750,000 to do a professional study with consultants to figure out how much it would cost, so that later on we could ask for money and it would be backed up by a number. Steffi and I sat on the stakeholder group for the study, which took about 2 years to do. It's done now. And the thing with her is she's tireless. And she's become known for that issue because she's gone to every legislator and talked about paratransit expansion. And the thing about being an advocate is it's good to be known for an issue. Even if you're not always talking about that issue, it's good that you're known for an issue, because they remember the issue and they remember your name. And as Max talked about at the start, the biggest success that we as people with disabilities who are advocating can have with legislators is the creation of those personal relationships with the legislators and the staff and the offices, right? So now they know Stephanie and they invite her to stuff because if that stuff possibly relates to paratransit expansion, they want her to see that stuff firsthand.
I just want to say, when Stephanie talks to me about this, because we talk a lot about what she's doing, and she doesn't come up with some algorithm like AI or anything like that. She doesn't, unearth a 3,000-year-old copy of some spiritual book and look at it like Indiana Jones. She just says to me, I'm doing this for us, Mike. I'm doing this for our people. And I think that's a good message, that you don't have to be a sage to be able to care about something enough to act on it. And I think she's a great example of that. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be able to speak a certain way. You don't have to dress a certain way. So excuse me. So I just wanted to say that on her behalf, because
Could I mention,
Oh,
Mike, if I could
Sure.
mention too, that today there's an article in the paper, the Buffalo News. The second section has a really good article that really cites a lot of the tireless work that Stephanie has done, and a real credit to her. She's been in the paper before, but that also is another way to get the information out, is the media. And whether it's the Buffalo News, whether it's the Challenger, whether it's whatever media, that's another way that we can get our message out. And Stephanie has taken advantage of all of those, and to her credit. And there's nice pictures of her in the news today.
And legislators have recommended her to media outlets to talk about things when the media comes to talk to legislators. Happens a lot, right?
Yep.
I'm in the article today, right?
Yep, you are too. That's right.
I get a lot of what are called background requests from media because they want information about the effect of a various bill or something like that. And that came and that's come because of my work in being there, talking about the issues with legislators and legislative staffs. Mike, you're right. You don't have to be a scholar, right? All you have to do is remember what mom and dad taught us. Speak from the heart, right? Be nice and say please and thank you. That's it.
And show your passion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes. And we're here to help you.
So Todd or any of the panel, we got a few more minutes, and I wanted to ask a question about, because you talked about going to Washington or maybe even to the state capitol, but what about visiting legislators locally? Are there any nuances to that, or anything you would want to say?
Well, visiting legislators locally is all about like calling and asking for an appointment, right? That's it. And whether it's that you go there or you do a phone meeting or you do a Zoom meeting, really doesn't matter. Local offices is where you get to talk about issues in depth. The state offices, they worry about like laws that are going to immediately be passed or stuff in the budget, right? The policy guys are based in the Albany offices. Locally, the people that work there are the people that are supposed to help constituents. That's what it's called, constituent services, right? So those people absolutely want to meet with you because they want to know how they can help. Those are great meetings to have. If you can't travel to Albany, if you can't travel to Washington, don't worry, right? Get a PAL ride, schedule an appointment, get a PAL ride and go.
The one thing I would say though is make sure if you have a physical disability that you make sure that the office is accessible for you, and if for some reason that is not, all you do is request to first of all, you should
Well,
request that it should be at
if
some point.
if
But
anybody finds an inaccessible local state legislative office, right, they should call you, me, or Max right away, right after they find that out.
yes, but I wanted to say if there's any public official that isn't in the best place for you, you can request that they meet you somewhere else.
Yep.
Don't let physical challenges stop you
Yeah,
from
no,
meeting with
don't
someone.
That's
let
right.
that stop you,
That's right.
right? And that's a thing about groups helping out. If you're scheduling a meeting and you want some help, you can call my office. We'll help you get a room at our place to have a meeting if you can't get to where they're at.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
The advocacy group might be able to help out with that. Wherever it is you're going to get help with that, you've got choices.
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
Well, in conclusion, or in a way, in conclusion, I wanted to say that, and I always say this spiel at the end of anything I talk about legislation and meeting with legislators. It literally, if you do, and you should go see them, but if you do nothing but make a phone call and voice your concern, it takes a minute and 50 seconds to complete that call. It takes a minute and 50 seconds to complete that call. I timed it years ago just to say it doesn't take your whole life. And what you can do is you can very easily look up your local. I'm trying to get my sound up here again because my fingers did it.
You're good. We can hear you, Mike.
You can look up your local representatives by going to your election, your state election board of elections website, and we have
which
it
is up on
here.
the screen right now.
Yes, that's a blank fill out sheet, and you just fill out that information. And what it'll do is, for example, it'll sorry about that.
Mhm.
It'll say what district you're in and all that kind of stuff, and then you can look it up, because sometimes when you go to those other websites, they might not have everything updated yet. So I found that was a good suggestion somebody had, and what I did is I blocked out my personal information about my address and everything, because you don't need to know where I live. But I looked up my information on that just to give you an example of of the information that you'll get, and then you can look up that just go on the internet. Google will tell you who is in what district you're in with those numbers, and tell you who your representative is. And it really is that simple. I know it might be scary, but it really is that simple to become a part of the political community to make change. And we want to thank you for joining us today. And Kat, if you could at the end of this put where people can get our other lunch and learns that we've done, so that they can view those as well, if
Michael's
that's
got a hand
possible.
up. Before we end, I want to be able to
Oh,
make
we
sure
have
we
a
can
hand
answer
up?
his. Matthew, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was clapping.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Thanks.
All
Thanks.
right,
Okay,
good.
thanks,
Appreciate
Matthew,
that. Thank you.
clapping. That's
Thanks for the
great.
positive feedback.
We appreciate
Yes,
that. Good.
great. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for attending today. And this is one of my first mobile things. So have a good day, everybody. Whenever
Great.
you view this, share it so that other people can see, and contact your legislators. Make that change.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.